with all the big calls on all the big races. And we've got a whopper coming from you at Wetherby this weekend. It's Charlie Hall weekend as we term it out there. Massive weekend for our sponsors Bet365. Jump racing in Ascot to concentrate on as well. The winter is well and truly in full swing, as am I, Dave Orton, thrilled to be back in the seat. Sitting what a shout with you this weekend, somewhere in the capital on a Friday morning. It's all ahead of us, isn't it? We'll be previewing all the big races for you. As said, great interview coming your way as well. Do like and subscribe. That's what it's all about. Give us that thumbs up. You can get your comments in below. We love reading them every weekend. Anything on Twitter as well. Hashtag what a shout. Look out for those social clips coming up. Let's get on with the show, shall we? Paul Kealy joins me back. Doubleheader. Interesting weekend last weekend, Keels.
It was, yeah.
Were you sort of kicking the cat a little bit? You found a very well handicapped horse, the best handicapped horse, and it turns out Ireland had another one.
Best handicapped horse, the best handicapped British trained horse, yeah. Botox has. I thought he ran an absolute cracker, but he just ran into one, didn't he?
He ran a cracker.
A Charles Byrne special. I think he proved he stayed 3 mile really well because he came back again, didn't he, at the end? But obviously got done by him. Wasn't my most successful Saturday. Got out of it on Sunday, thankfully, to a couple of nice winners.
The old Rowan chase, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I backed Hitman, but I saved on the winner. It's one of those where you read the comment from the trainer in the paper and you think, crikey. He is going to go well because this is a horse that goes, Riders on the Storm is a horse that goes well fresh, goes well at that track, and he was £8 lower than mine, just touched off in a race there, first time out last season. And the trainer basically said, we had the virus last year, the whole season was a write-off. He showed me as a different horse, and I think there's a great run in him. I mean, for a horse that's 16-1, yeah. I mean, you couldn't have a more bullish comment from a trainer.
Your sort of selection of that, isn't it? Yeah, but you've still got a lot of eggs in the Hitman basket, haven't you?
Yeah, I thought he ran an absolute blinder. I mean, he was given £20 to the winner, £17 to the third, who'd been given £8 for his absence, and was representing a trainer who had a near enough 50% strike rate in the previous 14 days, Jamie Snowden. So I think, even though they were both prices, you could sort of argue that the right horses were around him and he was giving him chunks of weight, nearly won, and was strong enough at the line. Again, for the second time, as with Fakir Du Dairies when he was second to him at Aintree in April, he got outpaced going to the second last and after it, and then ran on again close home. He's surely crying out for a step up in trip.
And you've backed him for the King George in the hope that again it's going to be a small field, I imagine.
Well, backed him for the King George. I'm not going to waste my time worrying about what Willie Mullins is going to do. We all, there was talk about Allaho coming last year and he didn't. Of course, Willie Mullins won it anyway with an outsider. But let's just look at the race. He's a 25-1 shot. He'll still be an outsider when he goes there because the plan is, apparently a graduation chase at Haydock on Betfair Chase Day. So that he's not going to be doing much. So he's still going to go there as an outsider. But I think he's an outsider that's going to run very, very well. And if Allaho shows, he shows. But, you have to take into mind, the Allaho that runs at Cheltenham in March is very rarely the Allaho that runs in the early part of the season. In fact, I think his best form before the turn of year is almost a stone below his spring form.
He managed to win first time out last season. I mean,
he can win, but he doesn't show the best. He doesn't show that sparkling form that he shows in the spring, or hasn't done yet. And that will be, of course, how he's trained. Yeah, because there's no reason why he can't.
And as I say every year, you feel sorry for the King George sometimes because you think it's going to be the race of the century, and a little bit like the
sometimes you have some crackers. Q Card Votor was brilliant and would have been even better if Don Cossack had obviously stood up at the last as well. So you can get some absolute crackers. Let's hope it is, but let's hope Hitman is in there with a good each way chance at the time.
So the winter is here. Kills is here. Kills is happy. The jump season is in full swing, and we're ramping up another notch this week.
We are ramping up another notch. Yeah, got a good card of competitive handicaps at Ascot and a serious quality Charlie Hall at Wetherby.
Yeah. I must admit, I am excited. Shall we go to Wetherby and see where our roving Pat Cooney is, a Yorkshireman this morning?
Yes, e-bag to all our viewers. And got up here early yesterday evening, had a look around. Very, very nice place. I can thoroughly recommend it on the old TripAdvisor.
Pat Cooney referencing a Tim Easterby sprinter there, rather badly. Pat, your huge weekend view, the Bet365 Charlie Hall. We won't go to it yet, we're going to preview it, of course, in its entirety, but you must be rather happy.
Oh, yes, we got the two headline acts that we wanted, really, Brave Man's Game and Ahoy Seigneur. And the ground looks like being fine for them both. I'm talking Friday morning. I was up early. It was still raining. It stopped raining about 9 o'clock in the morning. So the going should have the word soft in it in some way or form. And so that will suit everybody. So it's an ideal ground for them all. And it's not just the big two. The other five have got a decent levels of form as well. So we've got the race we were hoping for, that's for sure.
Absolutely. All right, let's hope this is the show you were hoping for out there. This is exactly what's coming up for you then. We go to Wales and speak to Sam Thomas, Welsh Grand National winning trainer, who gives us an update on two big runners this weekend and the plans for some absolute worldies in the stable coming up. We'll be giving you 5 big race previews from Wetherby and Ascot as well, and then those all-important weekend winners. And I cannot begin to tell you how excited I am about my nap this weekend. OK, let's beam across the bridge then. Into Wales we go. Returning to What a Shout, it's only Welsh Grand National winning trainer, Sam Thomas. Sam, that's got a lovely ring to it.
It does, yeah. No, it was a great day for us. Only down the road, obviously, and a very special race course to me, having been there many times as a kid. And yeah, look, it's fantastic. Unfortunately, no one was there with the band, with the crowds and what have you. That was the only sad part about the day, but other than that, it was fantastic and great for a small yard like us.
Oh, memories of that. Of course, we'd all sort of banished it from our mind now, Sam, haven't we? Very much so. But he sauntered through the mud, didn't he? Iwilldoit, it was his name, of course. Viewers will remember Sam's debut actually came just before Christmas. He came on, told him after winning the trial he had a classic chance, and he absolutely slammed them. Now, we've not seen him since, Sam. Is there any update?
Yeah, no, he's in full work with us. Whether we get to the Welsh National this time, it might just come a bit soon. He had a niggle after the race, so we just had to give him an easy time of things. And obviously, after winning that, we felt he didn't really owe us anything. So, yeah, so whether we get there in time, I think it's looking fairly unlikely, unfortunately. And then we've obviously got some long-distance chases later in the season. There's a lovely race at Warwick. Yeah, we'll just plot our way from there on, really. So we'll just have to wait and see. But like I say, he's in full work and seems in great form.
Yeah, you got the feeling he can still make the step up, can't you? Because he's a dynamite Dow stayer and he loves that mud, which we will be getting, hopefully, at some point. It's still pretty dry out there, isn't it? Including a look at Ascot then, Sam. Big weekend for you. 2 runners, of course, in very familiar colours. I think we could call before midnight, can't we? A bit of a flag bearer?
Absolutely, yeah. No, he's been a star, and all down to Sam Twiston. He got off him at Sandown and said, look, you've got to drop this horse back in trip, and we did, and he never stopped winning. So he's an absolute star for the yard. He's a trier. Things are going to be a lot tougher for him this season now off his career high mark. But you've got to live in hope. And if we're not winning tomorrow, it will be somewhere in the season later on, I'm sure.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because he won first time out last season. I know off a lower mark, but he should be fine on the ground. He won there at the November meeting as well, didn't he? But and he currently heads the market with Bet365 as well. So you're suggesting he might just come on for this?
I don't know if he'll come on for it. I might be being a bit negative, but I just feel, we led them merry dance the last time on really quick ground at Cheltenham, and sort of, like I say, we had a fair bit in hand as it turned out, handicap wise. I just think this time now it's going to be a fair bit tougher for him. Look, I'm not putting any negatives on him at all. I think he's hopefully going to go and run a huge race, but I do feel it will be tougher for him this time round.
OK, that's very interesting, isn't it? Because, these 2-mile chasers in the handicaps, they're sort of caught between, a rock and a hard place sometimes with their mark. But again, when he gets going, this horse, he's a real fan's favourite. Interestingly, then, we'll see how that goes in the market. I think it's at 3:15, isn't it? The London Gold Cup you have a go at with Our Power, also for Di Walters. And this chap, again, Charlie Deutsch takes the ride. A lot of people will be looking at him, Sam.
No, again, it took a while to sort of work him out. I think last season, ran him over 2-2 first time out. That was too sharp. Ran him over 2.5, and he scraped home and won at Wincanton. And then we stepped him up again, and he showed that he's got bags and bags of stamina. He might just be one that would appreciate better ground. Otherwise, he could fit into the bracket of being a Welsh National horse. I think he stays very well. He's not overly big, but he's a bit like Iwilldoit. He's just very economical with jumping. Again, Dave, this is a seriously tough race to start out. We haven't had a prep run, unfortunately. So although we've done as much graft with him as we can at home, I do feel he will be one that benefits for the experience, to be honest. Like I say, he's a small, butty little horse. He's always carrying condition. So, those older sort of slightly sort of laid back types do take a bit more work. But we've thrown everything we can give him, and he's in fantastic form. He's there to go and run a big race, hopefully. But throughout the season, there's so many nice long-distance chases. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with.
Hang on a minute. Have we just stumbled on another route to the Welsh National? We think that Iwilldoit might struggle. Who won the race for you last year? Is it you and Di thinking might have another one here?
Well, I don't see why not. Like I said, my only sort of potential negative is the ground. Really, I don't at this stage see him as a real mudlark. He's flat-bred. He points his toe. I think he could well be a horse which would benefit for better ground. Saying that, we train in deep sand every day, which sort of helps him build up those muscles to handle those conditions, if anything. But I don't see why we shouldn't be considering him as a Welsh National horse at this stage. The dream scenario is he goes and wins tomorrow, and then we hold a Coral entry of the Old Hennessy, and then we potentially sneak in at the bottom of the weights a low 140s, which I think would really suit him, a nice flat galloping track. So that's plan A at the moment. We need to get tomorrow out of the way first. But there were so many nice, valuable races last season that we targeted, and I think we should probably sort of try and go back to some of those races, like the nice race at Kempton. There was a big prize there and things like that. But with these horses, that there are lots of long distance chases, so there's lots of options.
Oh, isn't it great? It's all ahead of you, of course. Now, we spoke just briefly off air, and I said some of the horses that you've got coming up that we're really looking forward to next season. You say we need the rain. You keep hearing that from trainers out there at the moment. But of course, you don't want to risk your best horses on it, but there's a tenuous link. Charlie Deutsch, of course, gave you one of your best moments last season when Good Risk at All was sluiced through that handicap at Ascot. Still, that needs to be seen to be believed. He was looking behind him, turning in a cardinal sin for a jockey, but he got the job done. He was going so well. Does he run at Carlisle on Sunday?
Yeah, I've declared him there, so he's going to go up there. They're still on the inner track at Carlisle. It's a bit sharp. But look, obviously, he got a very stiff finish, as we all know, so that's going to play into his favour as the ground's on the soft side up there. He is one which, I was debating whether we go straight over fences with, because he jumps his hurdles at home a little bit big, and he's very measured, he's very accurate, so I think he's going to make an unbelievable chaser. But for the moment, we're going to leave him over hurdles, and there's a nice valuable handicap back at Ascot. I think it's on the 19th. They might try and target that again before sort of pursuing novice chases. But he's a cracking horse, and one I'm very lucky to have.
Yeah, these Ascot 2-mile handicap hurdles, they are valuable, aren't they? There's a nice narrative throughout the season with them, certainly up until Christmas and January. And when he won last season, he earmarked himself for that big time with all the punters. Great insight there into him. You're not wasting time in sending Skytastic over fences. I see he's got an entry at Warwick next week. You're hoping that the clouds open, but he's a very interesting horse going forward this season, Sam.
No, he is. Yeah, I'm also hoping that half the field don't declare at Warwick as well. Otherwise, we won't be going there. I think Pentland Hills might be a bit of a tough ask to go and take on first time out. But he's every inch a chaser. Although he's got no experience jumping hurdles, he sort of screams chaser to you. He's 17-1 plus. He's been schooling really well at home. Touch wood this season, we've got him ready to go early doors. Last season, he just had a little niggle which set us back. So I was chasing my tail with him last season. Whereas this season, touch wood, we haven't missed a day's work, and I love him. He's a dream horse. He's very laid back at home, and they're the sort of horses you want because they sort of generally save their best for the race course. Yeah,
like you say, I remember talking to you about him last Christmas, and we were all waiting for him to come out. You could tell how excited you were. He gamely got the job done at Ascot, didn't he? Despite massive drift in the market, looked like he needed it that day. Then you threw him in the deep end at Aintree. You stretched him out in trip that day, Sam. Are we thinking that he's a stayer in the making then?
Maybe, yeah. That was the wrong thing to do in hindsight, really. With both of the horses, actually, Good Risk and Sky, we sort of, I certainly ran Sky in the wrong race, but we also rode them wrong. We rode them far too handy, and Sky was up with the pace over 3 miles and got 2.5 miles and just completely blew a gasket, So that was the wrong thing to do, but you live and learn. So yeah, he's coming back in trip. I think we're going to stick at 2.5 with him. And that'll be a sort of optimum trip at the minute. He's not a slow horse. He's got lots of gears. Whereas I think Good Risk actually will end up being a 3-miler in time.
There we are. Look, the great insight, Sam, honestly. Gold Cup winning jockey, of course. Now, we can see that you're all action, Sam. You've got the helmet on. You've obviously been riding work. Lump sum landed a mighty gamble for you. Becoming a bit of a bumper trainer, Sam. Who's been pleasing you on the gallops this morning?
Well, good question. Well, I've just got off Stolen Silver. He's on the walker. He's had a nice exercise this morning. The plan is for the Paddy Power on the 12th of November. He's up to 150 now, so it's going to be like some of our other horses that did well for us last season. It's going to be a tough season for him, but he's got so much ability. He loves his racing. He relishes the Cheltenham Hill, so we'll go there on the 12th. And there's obviously, I think there's 2.5 races at every Cheltenham meeting from now on. So if he only raced at Cheltenham for the rest of the season, that wouldn't be the end of the world. But looking forward to him, mate. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. All right, and I cannot go without and end this interview without asking you about everyone's favourite rogue out there, Al Dancer, who always looks like he's going to win a race. And somehow, now I love what you're doing with this entry, because it could just be in the Grand Sefton. If he goes there, could he just take to the national fences?
Yeah, well, I mean, you always hear they're not as big as they used to be, and they're certainly not as tough as what they would have been sort of 10 years ago, put it that way. But jumping wise, he does have his own style of jumping. I always remember watching him with Nigel when I first started the job here, and even with us training him, he has his own way of doing things. He doesn't really back off his fences. He likes to sort of just run at them and sort of flip the top. So, I think hopefully you can sort of do that a bit more around Aintree, whereas you couldn't back in the day. So, yeah, I don't know really. He's fit. He's well. We've taken him away for a nice little day out. He'll go down the inside. He lugs a bit to the right. Sammy's very keen on the ride, and he's all systems go. He thinks it will hopefully suit him. One thing I learned was 2.5 is certainly his trip from last season. Had a bit of an experiment with him. He hated the mud and Chepstow over 3, and we sort of got him back to sort of somewhere not near his best, but he was going the right way towards the end of the season anyway.
Yeah, he was, absolutely. And when you get to love these horses, that's what the jumps game is. Just, it's so unique with 4 followers and punters. These horses keep coming back. We know their traits, and it's interesting to hear that Sam wants to ride, because he wants to be on when it all comes good. Look, we wish you well with that project. Sam, honestly, one of the best talkers in the game. You make my job so easy. Thanks for coming back onto What a Shout.
Thanks for having me, and all the best.
Sam Thomas, what a pleasure. Such good insight there from Sam Thomas, isn't it? He's quickly become a sort of target trainer, like a lot of the young trainers. Obviously, Gold Cup winning jockey, he rode some of the greats. He's very hands-on, as you might imagine. Rides every morning. They land the punt in the bumpers, don't they? He's got Skytastic coming back.
Yeah, I know. He's really sort of stepped up over the last couple of seasons, hasn't he? And he's done. He did really well with Before Midnight last year, and you can understand why he's a little bit concerned about he might have a bit too much to do tomorrow, because when horses have good seasons, they end up badly handicapped the next season, don't they? So we'll have to see how he goes. But no, he's definitely going places sometimes.
Yeah, it was almost like a mini stable tour. That. Don't forget, we're high in stable tour season here at the Racing Post, exclusive to our new app. Of course, you can find all them. And on Monday, Ollie Murphy today on the Friday. We had him on last week, but you can go and have an in-depth look there. Paul Nicholls coming up. Interesting to see what the Brave Man's Game revised comment will be after the 3:35 at Wetherby. Let's get on to Saturday previews for you then. Let's go up to Wetherby then, Pat. And the mares come out, of course. So this has been won by some really decent mares. And perhaps unsurprisingly, the Skeltons head the market at the moment.
Yes, and the mare who won the race last year, Ollie's Wishes, is the favourite at the moment, and probably rightfully so. I did start off thinking, I wonder if she's beatable. And the balance is she won this race last year, and she was quite well supported in the market that day. So it's easy to see why the Skeltons are going to start off again this time around. So I'd imagine she'd be fit and ready to go. And you look at the form of the race last year, the third horse that day was Marie's Rock, who went on to win at the Cheltenham Festival. So a repetition of that line of fours would be good enough to win again. And on official rating, she's, I think, just a pound in front of Martello Sky. That's going to be a formidable opponent as well, and probably 12 pound and beyond in front of the other 3. So on balance, I think Molly is the legitimate favourite for the race, and very much working on the basis if she repeats what she did a year ago, that would probably be good enough. But Martello Sky with Bryony Frost for Lucy Wadham, I suppose that's a formidable rival as well. A little bit in the unknown. Both of these haven't run for 200 odd days, yet the other 3 have got to the name. So that brings the other 3 into it a little bit. But the form book of last year's race says a repeat win for old Molly's at the wheel.
Molly's at the wheel. Love it, Pat. This is a lot easier, isn't it? Again for her, I think, like reverting to her own sex, coming back. But they messed around with her trip, didn't they, last season? Tried to stretch her out.
I mean, she lost the form at the end of last year. It might have been trip related, but I think she's got a few questions to answer, to be honest. And I think the Scotland Yard isn't firing in the winners left, right, and centre as you'd expect. I'm not saying they're really out of form, because he's still having a few, but I mean it's not at the strike rate you'd really expect. And she's only officially £1 better, and she's giving £2 to Martello Sky, whose first time out form figures are 1-1-1-1.
Yeah.
And I would have made her favourite, to be honest. And
She's a mare I really like.
I'd have made her favourite. I think the only reason she isn't favourite is because Molly Ollie's Wishes won the race last year. But I make her the one to beat. I think it's a match. I think Nina the Terrier is a terrible price based on what she's done. She's got to really, really step up. I know she's had a run, but she's probably got to step up to beat C to C, let alone the front two.
She hasn't really gone on with it, Nina the Terrier. She had a couple of big falls, didn't she, last season?
Yeah,
she didn't really come on with it.
She looked really promising, but she's got to do it, and she's got to step up in a big way. And to be only 7-2 against those two, I see her drifting out to about 5s, and it'll be nearer 6-4 each of two, the front two, to be honest. But, and I think if you like betting at short, small odds, which you tend to have to do if you fancy a fancied runner in a small field, then I think Martello Sky is no bad value at all.
Yeah, I think you wonder with Nina. You're probably right, actually, Kills. I think you wonder with Nina how much they're looking at her future career, maybe with races like this, don't you? So Martello Sky, me and Kills keen on her. All right, okay, where are we going next? Oh, it is in the course to 240 at Ascot, and a horse that everyone loved last year, including Paul Kealy, Pat Cooney, was Before Midnight. He heads the market with you, but Sam Thomas says he's not sure about his handicap mark.
Yeah, 147 hasn't done him too many favours, really, has he? He looked a pretty type last year. But he was beaten in his last 3 runs. He doesn't smack of being a bargain at his current price, really. And I could see, given Sam's comments about the horse, he'll be a drifter in the market. It's a very competitive race. And most of these are very much linked in together on form. Amula Gold, Diego de Charmel, Frero Bamboo. They're all pretty much tied in together on course and distance form as well. So it's a right tricky little race, this one. I thought perhaps Nasalem for Gary Moore and Jamie Moore might be of interest here, on the basis he's a 5-year-old. He won at this meeting a year ago of 140, and he's only 145. I could see him improving £5 from year to year. And I just thought, on balance, he would appeal more to me. The others have been beating each other. So, good luck with your bets. Diego de Charmel's interesting with Freddie Gingell.
Non-runner. He's down as a non-runner on the card. I just spotted that. It must have happened very, very recently. Because I backed him.
Thank you for jumping in there, Kills.
Yeah. I mean, I just looked, and I was going to say, I really like his chance, and there you go. It must have happened very, very recently. That probably while we started coming on air. So
revise your plans then, Pat. Who next?
I think Nasalem is the one of interest for me in this race. As I say, a 5-year-old. He's only had a few runs over fences. He won at this course last year. 145. That suggests to me a well handicapped horse. He's a 5-year-old. Going to be progressive, and he'll have been fit and ready for this race, I'm sure. I think Nasalem might be the one to go off favourite, given Sam's slightly negative comments about Before Midnight's chance.
Oh, isn't that interesting then? Yes, this could be a market that might be quite lively, Kills, and it's a race that's making my head hurt a little bit. You've got last year's 1-2, slightly controversial, of course. Amula Gold gubbed, if you like, Monsieur Lecoq on the run-in, having looked a million turning in, and then Monsieur Lecoq was later awarded the race. He is quite interesting on that comeback run. I don't think he was disgraced, Monsieur Lecoq, and you have to imagine this is probably the plan.
Yeah, I'd be a little worried. I always think he wants plenty of cut in the ground, and going stick reading 6.2 is a fair bit higher than when it was a good to soft last year on what would have said similar ground. I mean, I'd say it's bordering on the good side of good to soft, definitely with a 6.2. So you'd have to worry a little bit about that.
Hence, you liked Diego then?
I liked Diego because he's just shaping like a winner waiting to happen. He had a £10 claim run. Paul Nicholls has won the race twice for the same owner with claimers riding, and he's well handicapped on old form. He won the race in 2019, obviously when he forced Cape Plan the other side of the fence, if you remember at the last. Yes. But there's no point talking about that because he's gone. So I came down. I've also backed another one yesterday. Funny enough, Gamble, who was a big price. Now he probably hasn't. Well, he definitely hasn't won the races he should have won over fences, and he can be a little bit clumsy. Remember, he looked like he was going to thrash Eldorado Allen in a Grade 2 novice and came down 2 out. But he's now a stone lower than when he was first given the mark over fences, and he ran on the flat for Fergal O'Brien last month at Ascot, and he equalled his PB RPR on the flat when finishing second, given £23 to the winner. So it just shows that all the old ability remains, and it's a case of putting in a clear round. I think he's probably quite nicely handicapped now, so I'd give him a shot.
You think that Paddy Brennan will be really looking forward to this ride. It's just a sort of challenge that he relishes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm smiling through all of that because we've got all these great names coming back, haven't we? Let's go back up to Wetherby then. 3 o'clock, it's graded time again for the West Yorkshire Hurdle, the Bet365 West Yorkshire Hurdle, of course. And again, we've seen some great stayers in this over the years, Pat. We've got a clear fav.
Yeah, Sporting John is favourite, and he's a really talented horse, this fella. And I say on official ratings, he's quite taking Thomas Darby up. There's quite a gap between him and the others. And you look at his record, he's had 11 races, 6 wins. He's a very talented horse. I think he's a little bit on the fragile side. We don't do much, but I think he's a deserving favourite. That being said, we haven't seen him for 280 odd days. Prashima, I think, is an interesting. I go back to last November. There was a handicap hurdle which Sporting John won at Cheltenham. But I thought Prashima, when he was only, I think, receiving about £1, I think, he gets 4 tomorrow. He was going every bit as well when he fell two hurdles out. I think Prashima might have beaten him that day. So on that basis, you could give Prashima a chance. Although he didn't show that much, I didn't think, at Chepstow 3 weeks ago. So it's an intriguing race. Sporting John, definitely the horse that should be favourite, really, on overall form. I keep trying to say to myself, Thomas Darby might be of interest. I know does his own thing. It's his first run since a wind operation. He's probably around about a 10-1 chance, and you could say, well, rightly so. But on his day, he's talented when he goes and behaves himself. He may just be of interest. But Sporting John, I think, is overall seeded very well.
All right, Kills, you've heard from Pat. We've got last year's 1, 3 and 4 here. Indefatigable beat Prashima, and Thomas Darby's back and forth, isn't he? And this is full of horses that I just don't get right, this race. Sporting John, talented as he is, I never seem to get one.
He's a very talented horse, Sporting John, isn't he? But, I'm one of those people, I've always seemed to oppose him for some reason. And it's one of those that there's no doubt whatsoever that he is, at the weight, he's the best horse in the race because he's obviously getting a bit of weight from Thomas Darby. The interesting thing about it is Thomas Darby actually comes out as second best at the adjusted weights, but he's 5th best in the betting, and that may well be because he was behind Indefatigable last year and Prashima, and he wasn't ready, but he came on in a big way next time out. He won the long distance hurdle at Newbury at a Grade 2, which is why he's got the big £6 penalty. But interesting to note that not only has he had a wind up, but in Ollie Murphy's stable tour that's in today's Racing Post, he's been away for a racecourse gallop, and that is suggestive of a horse that is fitter this year than last year to actually bother doing that before the race. So I'm going to give him a shot. The one worry about Sporting John, who does go well fresh, Philip Hobbs is 1 from 19 in the last 2 weeks, and the winner came in a 3-runner novice chase, I think it was. So it's just a little bit. He's been a little bit quiet the yard. The bigger yards are only just starting. The vast majority of the horses are having their first run, and lots of them, we're the same with Nicky Henderson. They're not fully wound up. So, the trainers won't be panicking, but just a little bit quiet for me. And I think if you're going to bet, you sub 2-1, you'd like to see the trainer banging in a few more winners than he is. So I'd have a small pop. It's not a massive punting weekend for me, to be honest, this weekend, but I'd have a little small pop on Thomas Darby. 3
under 3-5 is an interesting horse in the race, isn't he? Coming back, you have to presume he's having a prep run for the Gold Cup or whatever it is.
Gold Cup, yeah, you'd have to think. I mean, we've had this before, haven't we? I mean, what's his name? Native River.
Yes.
Ran in this race, and we've had other chasers run in this race. It's not a bad idea. On his, given his chase form, you'd think, he'd have a half a chance, but on his hurdles form, obviously, he's got plenty to find.
Yeah, all right, interesting. I suppose if there is a cup final in this race, probably is last year's winner, Indefatigable for Paul Webber, who has had a spin on the flat to get ready for this. It's the one race I'll be at the bar, though. I'm going to be honest about that. I won't be doing that for the London Gold Cup, Pat, at Ascot. This looks like a fiercely competitive, as we ought to expect for the grade and the prize money, handicap over fences.
Yeah, good looking race, isn't it? But I do think there is a standout in this race. I think Major Dundee is a horse very much of interest this season, not just on Saturday. I mean, this is a horse, he's had 4 runs over fences, 2 wins, a second and a third. And the third was in the Scottish Grand National, and that was off a marker 132. And he's off 132 on Saturday. So to me, he starts the season as a very well handicapped horse. Hard for the handicapper, of course. He was beaten 12 lengths by Win My Wings on the day. So I wouldn't imagine the handicapper were obliged to put him up, but it was still an excellent run. Third of 23 in a Scottish National and the same handicap mark today. He won first time out last year. I think this is the sort of horse the public and the tipping lines are going to latch onto in a big way. So I think Major Dundee will be a big mover on the day.
The colours of late Trevor Hemmings then. That Scottish National run for Major Dundee, he fared the best of the prominent horses from memory, and he went well for a really long way, and then we always saw what happened down the home straight, didn't we? The Williams pair went on, including Kitty's Light, who reopposes. Really good race this, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good race, but I'm in full agreement with Pat, to be honest. I think Major Dundee does stand out a little bit, and Alan King's talking about running him in the Coral Gold Cup. Well, he says he wants to get a run into him before the Coral Gold Cup, so it is absolutely the plan. Now, when you look at it, unless you have one of those years where, like when Size and Tennessee beat only 11 rivals, he won't get in. He won't get in off a mark of 132, and even if he does get in, he won't be in the weight. So there's every incentive for him to be fit enough to do himself justice first time up. And, he's the most lightly raced horse in the race over fences, has some of the best form, very, very promising. And, yeah, I think he's going to take an awful lot of beating.
Okay, all right, strong on the favs then. Just also I'm quite interested in for the future of this season. It's also called Rapper for Henry Daly, who I think has got a big prize in him. He might just need it tomorrow, but
he might be a bit clumsy in a big field round there.
I'm not suggesting
I like
tomorrow.
him. I like him. But
he's got that correct rambler form, and things like this. And he's a horse. He looks beat, and he keeps pulling out more.
I just wonder about Ascot's fences in the big field where he'll just get into the roots of a couple of them, won't he? You know what I mean?
You look at the likes of fullback in this race, and you're thinking future targets, aren't you? Kitty's Lights had a run.
You always do. The Kitty's Lights had a run, but it was a poor one for him.
And I think Christian has said it a little bit, privately to people recently. He's had a hard season last season.
Yeah, he did have a hard season last season, and he's probably, he did hit form at some point, but he is now definitely handicapped to win. Just depends on how long these horses go on for. You can't believe he's only 6. I mean, he's already had about 16 long-distance chases.
As a 4-year-old who's doing it.
You know what I mean? So, hopefully he comes back. He's definitely handicapped to win a decent pot this year.
Yeah. All right, we could talk about that race forever. Some great characters coming back. Good luck wherever you're playing. What wins it? It's a tricky puzzle. Let us know below. Let's go to the feature race then. It is the Bet365 Charlie Hall. And here he is, Brave Man's Game. Well, we saw him making his reappearance last season against some toughies on his chase debut at Newton Abbot in October. Is he an early season horse?
Well, he's. I think he's just a very good horse, whatever time of the year he is. But he's an interesting horse. He did disappoint in the last time we saw him, but he has had a wind up since. He looked the part, didn't he? And delighted to see Paul Nicholls saying early on a few months ago that the horse was going to be targeted for this race. Got the race we want by an act of the race, and he's going to be very, very tough to beat. And he's an extremely talented horse. And you go back to that Christmas race at Kempton where he beat Ahoy Seigneur. He did win that race pretty handily, I thought, and you'd have to mark him down as a better horse than Ahoy Seigneur over Christmas. But times change. Ahoy Seigneur, he just keeps continuing to impress. And I think they'll be close together in the market, the two of them. Ahoy Seigneur, of course, was a non-runner at this meeting a year ago when the ground was deemed too fast. I'm sure the connections will be pleased to see there was rain overnight and the word softs in the description. I think Ahoy Seigneur might just be more popular at his price than Brave Man's Game at his. Ironically, the mover during the week was Eldorado Allen of Joe Tizard, and that brings a high level of form to the table as well, and that's got a good, decent record first time out as well. So not just the match, there's some talented horses in the race, and the worst rated in the horse race is Win My Wings of 153. Brave Man's is 161 and ever, but Win My Wings won the Scottish National by a wide margin. There's a talent-packed field. Both the main two are going to have to be on the top of their game. I'd rather back a Hoist Senior at his price at the moment than Brave Man's Game, but I wish them all very well, the connections.
Okay, all right. I think Eldorado Anna might have had something to do with you in the week. But before we get to that, isn't it good to see, come on, we've got to celebrate these horses taking each other on a little bit. We say it doesn't happen all the time, and we can see some Charlie Halls that a little bit, it used to be one by the greats, didn't it? You know, you remember Q Card did it, of course, and, you know.
Yeah, it's great. And it's also, you know, this is also like an enduring match between them as well, because this will be the fourth time they've met already. I mean, obviously, Hoist Senior beat Brave Man's Game in the Grade 1 Novice Hurdle, then beat him in the Grade 1 Novice Chase when Brave Man's Game was out of his, you know, he just wasn't him that day, obviously. Yeah. They were both at Aintree. Brave Man's Game left him for dead at Kempton in the Court Star. You can argue that every time they've run against each other, one of them hasn't shown up because Hoist Senior didn't jump as well that day and was left behind. It's hard enough to pick between them. I think flat left-handed track is absolutely bang on perfect for a Hoist Senior. It's obviously no issue to Brave Man's Game, even given the way he won a handicap at Newbury last year. So there's no excuses other than the fact that neither will be fully wound up. You have to expect that. Both of them have got bigger targets on the horizon. Brave Man's Game probably the Betfair Chase, Hoist Senior possibly that too. Maybe the Coral Gold Cup, in which I think he'd have a great chance of for Michael 161, is it? I'm just looking at.
Yes, it is.
The same Michael that Denman won the race off first time, and of course he doesn't have to do it by 10 lengths, you know. And I think he's probably got enough in him to be a massive player there. So how ready will they be? And if you look at the history of this race, last 10 years, only one winner was officially the best horse at the weights.
Is that because it's a gruelling test?
Well, no, it's not a gruelling test. It's because it's because this time of year it's about who's ready, not necessarily who's best.
That's my point. Because if you're not 100% ready,
this
race can bottom you, can't it?
Well, it can be a test. Well, I don't necessarily say bottom you, but if you're not ready, you're not ready. You're not going to be given a hard time. You are not going to be, you know what I mean. You very rarely see really, really stirring finishes in this race from the major fancies, if you see what I mean. It's something either wins it easily, like Surname did a couple of years ago, and that is the only horse in the last 10 years that's been officially the best horse at the weights.
Vindication was the horse,
and he didn't even go fav. Like, you know, the market gets it, you know, backwards and sideways as well. It tries to predict whether horses are right. It sent off 4 horses that were favourite, that were at the top of the weight, that were officially best at the weights. They all got beat. So he's, you know, there are reasons to think you can take them on. I thought when there was, there was 10 entries at the 5-day stage, I thought Eldorado Allen was 8-1, and it was just a knock each way bet because his first time out form was a 1-2-1-1. He won the Orton Gold Cup first time out last year.
Yeah.
Stepped up in trip, beat Royal Pagaille over 3 mile at Newbury. So, you know, him to me was a standout. Now, the thing about him now is we've got 7, so you can't really have an each way bet. And he's a fair bit shorter, and doesn't make that much appeal, you know, in the win market now. But his peak form is up there with him. He's got to give him a bit of weight, but not much. He's officially rated 162. Those two are 161.
And the stable has started to come back into life a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And again, you know, he's a horse that goes really well fresh. But there are others in there that certainly aren't out of it on the best form. Secret Investor, if he's straight, for sure. Win My Wings. This has been her plan. Now, you know, she's obviously got it to do at the weight. But would it be a massive surprise?
Well, Kitty's Light ran in the race with loads to do at the weights last year, and while he didn't get anywhere near a sniff of winning, he showed himself. I wouldn't be surprised if she had a say in the race. I think it's all about the National probably this season, I should say. And she's a fascinating horse. They got it wrong, didn't they, when they stretched her out probably in the Bet365 at Sandown. Probably one run too many that. But
I mean, you've also got Sam Brown in the race. I mean, he thrashed.
Does he want more cut, though?
Well, he probably does. Yeah, I mean, there is talk about it being a little bit faster than they're saying. That's what the rumours are going. But again, Pat said it was raining just now. So you know, it could turn around. But I mean, he thrashed Sam Brew by 15 lengths last year.
Yeah. If it's really hot deep underfoot, and I know we're going on a bit with this preview, but this is a cracker we deserve
it's
to,
worth
don't we?
It, yeah.
Could a Hoist Senior be putting pressure on Brave Man's for favouritism, do you think? We're talking about 11 away.
I don't think. I genuinely don't.
2-1
I
shot.
genuinely don't think there should be anything between them in the betting anyway.
Yeah.
On their very best pieces of form, there is literally nothing between. That's
Bravemans has had the
That's
wind
why
up.
the handicap has them at 100, but both on the same mark of 161. Bravemans has had a wind up. A lot of Paul Nicholls horses have wind ups.
Of course. But he's got a lot to
pre-season
prove
anyway.
coming back on what happened at the end of the
Well,
season.
yeah, I mean, he does seem like an early season horse, doesn't he? At the moment,
Does.
We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
He certainly doesn't seem to be a festival horse.
But when you go back to the Corto start last Boxing Day, he comprehensively
He was
beat Ori,
sensational. His
didn't
jumping was fantastic.
He looked the
Ahoy
real
Senor's
deal.
wasn't, but I do think that Ahoy Senor wants to go left-handed, and he has jumped really, really. Apart from one at Aintree, I think he jumped really, really well.
Yeah. So watch the weather, watch the market. But for
Yeah.
anyone playing the race now, Eldorado.
I'd lean towards Eldorado, Alan, but I've had my bet. I'd have been happy to say have a little smash on this because he's a cracking each way price, but he isn't anymore because there's only 7.
Oh, well, let's put some pressure on Pat Cooney to put 3 places up, shall we? Right, so basically, which camp are you in? Are you Ahoy or are you in the Bravemans? Let us know below. This is an absolute early season cracker. Enjoy it, won't you? Try and find the winner. Right then, nap time this weekend. I have to say, as I said at the top of the show, I am rather excited about mine, so I'm going to kick off.
Go
Are you
on,
ready
then.
for this? 205 at Ascot, which sets the road for the 2-mile hurdlers on the way to what we call the Betfair Hurdle, doesn't it? But there are some very valuable handicaps in between, Greatwoods and the like of that. And while there are characters aplenty in here, I'm just checking down to see what price he is at the moment. Call of the Wild for Alan King. Go back and have a look in your members club at the replay of him at Cheltenham when he signed off in April. He got outstayed by a horse called Pull Again Green. He didn't fire on his chase debut recently, but he was the hot horse at the time. He has got him covered going to the last. I think Alan King knows this is a stiff 2-miler, and I think he's definitely got room for improvement in him, and I think tomorrow he will probably beat them. I know you've put up Bruford Bergen.
I have put Broomfield Berg up, man, and I put it up because I think it was a slightly easier test than he had at Chepstow over 2 mile 3. But I thought he ran really, really well in that Silver Trophy behind Nappers Hill. Looks like he settles again now, and he's a horse that's definitely better than the mark of 130 if he puts it.
Well, that's my problem with him.
Up there.
I know a little bit about what they think about him, and he's massively disappointed them.
Yeah, I mean he's not, he's another Morning Glory, isn't he? I mean he went off 11 to 4 favourite for the Betfair Hurdle last year, off a mark of 134, and he's twice the price off a £4 lower mark now. That tells you how disappointing he's been more than anything else.
Yeah.
But I thought he shaped well after that wind up. I think he ran well. And it's not the stiff test you think it is at Ascot, because remember it's only 1 mile 7.5 furlongs.
You watch coming to that second last though. Call of the Wild will be there. Oh, I'm excited about this one. 205. Paul Kealy.
Weege will say, I will go in that mare's hurdle race. Was that 225 Wetherby Martello Sky? I just think she should be fav, and while she isn't, she remains a good bet.
We're going to nod in agreement on that one. That would be a near next best for me. Pat Cooney, where are you going?
Well, they say patience is a virtue, so I'm going to wait 5:20 at Wetherby, the lucky last on Saturday. And my one is Rocky Man. A couple of reasons. Dan Skelton always targets this particular 2-day meeting at Wetherby. Dan trains it. And he's an intriguing horse to me, really. He had 3 runs last year. He bumped into sort of horses with Triumph Hurdle aspirations, Knight Salute and those type of horses. He ultimately was disappointing behind them, but he's had a wind up since we last saw him. And in France, he had 2 runs, and then his win, it was over 2 miles. So you think maybe 2 miles over hurdles was always going to be on the sharp side for him. And on Saturday in the finale, this is 3.5. So the extra 3.5 furlongs, the wind up, Dan Skelton at Wetherby is always ticking a lot of boxes. So I'm going to wait for a Rocky Man.
In the Langer Dan colours. Yeah, he's really unexposed, that one. Tell you what, 3 intriguing naps there. Well, sadly, that's what we've got time for here on this week's What a Show. We could have gone on and on and on, man, couldn't we?
We could, yeah. I mean, it's cracking racing.
Everyone's over the moon now that the jump season is back. Lots of people being said this. We had a press morning at Willie Mullins the other day, didn't we? And unfortunately, some horses out. And we're learning about Mr. Nice Guy, sad about that. Horses obviously had his problems. But Willie also came up with this, what some people have been calling an ingenious move. It's that simple, he says. Just put the races sooner together, cut the break basically between the races, and racegoers won't be bored at the race.
It depends on what you want out of the race. With 2 things. One is, I mean, there isn't a racecourse in Britain, not a top one anyway, that makes any effort to get races off on time anyway. So, I mean, it's a bit of a moot point talking about them because it'll always be later anyway. It's just a fact, and there doesn't seem to be any urgency to catch up afterwards once you've lost that time. So the race times are, basically irrelevant. But the point is, what do you want out of racing? Do you just want to go and stand in a bar and punt, or do you want to go and look round? You can go to the parade ring, you can go to the pre-parade ring, you can go to the winner's enclosure afterwards and see them. It's not just about sitting in a boozer watching the racing on the telly. And if you want to have a bet on other races, there's loads of other races during the day. So
yeah.
I don't actually have an issue with 35 minutes. I don't have an issue with 40 minutes. I think at the big meetings it works really well. The distance between racing, so not a big deal to me, to be honest. And at the end of the day, they're not going to make any effort to get off on time anyway. So
getting the races off on time would be a help.
So
wouldn't
what?
It? Yeah, we won't even be able to interview jockeys. Maybe Willie doesn't want to be interviewed in between the races. That might be a shrewd move from the Close Sutton Maestro. Pat, what did you make of that? Great to have you on again this week.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we sponsor at Wetherby both Friday and Saturday, and there's 35 minutes gaps between them all. And I think that's correct, because there's the mechanics of it. Tomorrow we've got the ITV cameras and the Racing UK cameras. Winning jockey comes in, Racing UK interview him. He chats away for 5 minutes. ITV want to interview him. We're standing there with the trophy ready to present to the owners. And all the clock is ticking all along while this is going along. The jockey's got to weigh in, weigh out for the race. You suddenly try and box it up to 25, 30 minutes. I don't think you're doing the sponsor of the races any good at all, because we all like the group photo. The owners want to be in amongst the photograph. And if you say, well, hang on, the jockey's still being interviewed, the trainer's currently been interviewed, it all makes everything just a little bit tight. I do get it. I was at Newbury last year for one day, and I was absolutely frozen solid. But looking at it on the other side of the fence, you've got horses coming back, they're unseated, the jockeys maybe coming back being checked over by the doctor. I think it's a real push to get it 30 and beyond that. So 35 is fine with me.
Kills.
Right, yeah, talking of jockey and trainer interviews, the thing that's bothered me for a while, why are TV viewers getting a better deal out of it than actual racegoers? Why aren't these interviews on a microphone, amplified, so people can hear it?
I think that's a great idea.
I went years ago to Deauville, and can't remember what year it was, but there was a Mickey Mouse race on the card that was won by Francois Dumas, sorry. And he's interviewed in both French and English.
I was going to say, you had Google Translate.
You obviously hadn't got on the shabby. No, he was interviewed in both French and English, and it was there for everybody. Yeah. And they did that for every single race. Now, why doesn't that happen? Why doesn't it happen over here? Why do TV viewers get more out of it than paying racegoers? It's expensive enough to go racing as well, but you've got, the horses are the stars, but the jockeys and the trainers are the stars as well. And nobody gets to hear anything from them at any racecourse in the country when they're there, and that's completely pointless.
In fairness to Ascot, it's something they have trialled before, I'm pretty sure. The likes of Mike Catt and Martin Kelly that do the emceeing there. I have heard some in between races. But listen, absolutely, there's a little idea from us here. Again, we could have gone on and on and on, but this is the end of the show. This is Dave Orton signing off then. Thanks for joining us this weekend. Have your say about that below, whether you're watching on Twitter or on YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to download the new Racing Post app. You can do that on the Google Play Store or the App Store itself. Don't forget to gamble responsibly this weekend. It's early days still in the jump season. All the sport out there, do enjoy it.